At the gender reveal I paid for, my sister took the microphone, smiled at 80 guests, and announced that I wasn't welcome because, according to her, single ants are depressing. Everyone laughed, not everyone because they thought it was funny. Some people did that uncomfortable little laugh people make when they realize they've just witnessed something cruel but don't want to be the first person to admit it. I was standing 6 feet away from her, holding the gift bag I had brought for her baby, at a party that had cost me exactly $8,950. My name is Julia Farrell. I'm 34, unmarried, childless, and apparently that combination made me a threat to the cheerful atmosphere of my younger sister's gender reveal. My sister, Vanessa, was glowing in a pale pink dress beneath an arch of white, blue, and pink balloons. Her husband, Clark, stood beside her with one hand around her waist. Vanessa lifted her champagne flute. "Well," she said, looking directly at me, "almost everyone here is staying for the reveal." A few people chuckled. I frowned. What does that mean? Her smile widened. "Oh, Jules, don't make it awkward." My mother suddenly became extremely interested in rearranging napkins. My father stared into his drink. That was when I understood. Vanessa had planned this. "What are you saying?" I asked. She lowered the microphone, but not enough. Unfortunately for her, it still picked up every word. "I just think today should be about positive family energy." I stared at her. "And I'm negative family energy?" She sighed dramatically. "You know what I mean." "No, I don't." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Single ants are depressing at baby events, Julia. Everybody keeps asking you when you're going to settle down, then you get quiet. Mom gets worried, and suddenly the whole mood changes." A few heads turned away. Somebody coughed. I could feel 80 people pretending they weren't listening. The strange thing is, I didn't feel angry immediately. I felt embarrassed for her. Because 20 minutes earlier, she had been introducing me to people as my amazing sister who made this whole thing possible. Apparently, I had stopped being amazing once the invoices were paid. Or, more accurately, once she thought they were paid. I looked at my parents. Mom finally met my eyes. "Julia," she whispered, "maybe just go home for a little while. Vanessa's hormonal." There it was. The family translation of, "Please absorb this humiliation quietly so the difficult person doesn't have to face consequences." I nodded. "Okay." Vanessa looked surprised. I think she expected tears. Maybe yelling, maybe she expected me to remind everyone that the flower arrangements cost $740, that the photographer cost $1,200, that the venue package, catering, decorations, DJ, custom cake, balloon installation, and ridiculous smoke cannons came to $8,950. Instead, I walked to the gift table, placed my present beside the others, picked up my purse, and left. My mother followed me into the hallway. "Julia, honey." I kept walking. "Julia." I stopped. She lowered her voice. "Please don't ruin today for your sister." I actually laughed. Not loudly, just once. "Mom, I'm leaving. Isn't that what she wants?" You know she didn't mean it like that. She literally used a microphone. Mom flinched. "Pregnancy has made her emotional." No, pregnancy made her pregnant. Being cruel was already there. "Julia." I opened the door. Then I looked back at my mother. For the first time in my life, I'm going to do exactly what Vanessa asked me to do. I left. And 1 hour later, the music stopped, the lights dimmed, the venue manager walked through 80 confused guests toward my sister and said, "Ma'am, we need to speak about the outstanding balance. The payment authorization has been withdrawn." But to understand why I did what I did, you need to understand how my family worked. I had been Vanessa's backup plan since she was 19. Actually, probably earlier. I was 5 years older, which in my parents' minds apparently meant I had been born with a mortgage, retirement account, and emergency fund. Vanessa was the emotional one. I was the responsible one. When Vanessa crashed Dad's car at 17, Dad said, "She's young." When I got a speeding ticket at 21, Dad lectured me about personal accountability for 2 weeks. When Vanessa dropped out of college after 3 semesters, Mom said she was finding herself. When I changed jobs for a 22% salary increase, Mom asked why I couldn't just be grateful where I was. I learned early that success didn't earn me freedom. It earned me responsibilities. By 28, I worked in medical equipment sales. I traveled constantly, negotiated hospital contracts, and made good money. That was when the requests really started. "Julia, could you cover Christmas dinner this year?" "Julia, your father's car needs tires." "Julia, Vanessa's security deposit is due Friday." "Julia, you don't have children. You can afford it." That last sentence became my mother's favorite. You don't have children, as though every dollar in my bank account was community property until I reproduced. Vanessa married Clark 3 years ago. I paid $3,400 toward their wedding after the photographer they wanted exceeded their budget. I also paid for Vanessa's dress alterations. Then I covered the rental car because Clark's credit card was maxed out. Nobody forced me, that mattered. For a long time, I blamed them for taking. Eventually, I had to admit that I had trained them to expect me to give. Whenever someone called with a crisis, I solved it. It made me feel useful. And if I'm being painfully truthful, being useful was the closest thing I had to feeling valued in my family. Then Vanessa got pregnant. She called me screaming with excitement. "Jules, you're going to be an aunt." I cried. I really did. Whatever resentment existed between us, I loved my sister. And I loved that baby before I even knew whether it was a boy or girl. 2 months later, Vanessa invited me for coffee. She arrived carrying a folder. That should have been my first warning. "I have an idea," she said. She opened it. Inside were printed photos of luxury gender reveals, balloon arches, catered food, professional photography, a venue overlooking a lake, custom desserts. I laughed. "Are you planning a gender reveal or launching a royal heir?" She didn't laugh. "I want this to be special." "Okay." Clark's parents are covering the nursery. I knew where this was going. Vanessa. "Mom and Dad can't afford much." Vanessa. "And you always say experiences matter more than things." I said that about going to Italy instead of buying another handbag. She reached across the table. "Please." I should have said no. Instead, I asked, "What's the budget?" Her face lit up. That was how I became the financier of the most expensive party I had ever attended for less than 40 minutes. Originally, Vanessa promised to keep it under $5,000. Then the guest list grew. Then she needed a better photographer. Then the basic catering package looked cheap. Then Clark wanted an open bar. I refused that one because half the guests would be driving. Vanessa complained for 3 days. The final estimate came to $8,950. The venue coordinator, a calm woman named Denise, explained the payment structure to both of us. A $2,000 deposit immediately. The remaining balance charged to the authorized card at 5:00 p.m. on the day of the event, after final guest count and vendor adjustments. I paid the deposit. I authorized my card for the balance. Vanessa hugged me. "You're seriously the best sister ever." I remember those words because 6 weeks later, I stood under the balloon arch she had purchased with my generosity while she publicly explained why my life was too pathetic for her celebration. The signs had started earlier that afternoon. Vanessa barely spoke to me during setup. Whenever I approached, she seemed irritated. At one point, I asked where she wanted the baby prediction cards. She handed them to a cousin. "It's fine, Melissa can do it." Then her friend Ashley arrived and hugged Vanessa. She looked at me and said, "Oh, Julia, I didn't know you were coming." I smiled. Why wouldn't I be? Ashley's expression changed. Nothing. 20 minutes later, I heard Vanessa whispering with 2 friends near the restroom. I caught only one sentence. "She always makes family stuff weird because she's still single." I should have walked over. Instead, I told myself I misunderstood. That was another habit I had developed. Whenever someone showed me exactly what they thought of me, I searched for a kinder interpretation. Then came the microphone. Then came single answer depressing. Then came my mother asking me not to ruin Vanessa's day. I reached my car and sat behind the wheel. My hands were shaking. I didn't cry. I opened the venue contract on my phone. I read the payment section twice. The final balance had not been charged yet. It was 4:11. At 4:13, I called Denise. "Lakeshore Events, this is Denise." "Hi, it's Julia Farrell." Her voice immediately softened. "Julia, I was actually wondering where you went." "I was asked to leave." Silence. Then, "I'm sorry?" "Vanessa told me I wasn't welcome." Another pause. "Oh." That "oh" contained an entire conversation. I continued. "I need to withdraw my authorization for any additional charges." Denise became professional immediately. "Understood. Just so we're clear, the deposit has already been processed and is non-refundable. The remaining balance is $6,950. "I understand. If we cannot process the authorized card, the host will need to provide another payment method." "That's fine." "Do you want us to terminate the event?" "No." I surprised even myself with how calm I sounded. "I'm not asking you to punish anyone. I'm just no longer paying for a party I've been removed from." Denise paused. "That's reasonable." I nearly cried when she said that, not because it was profound, because nobody in my family had said anything remotely similar. "That's reasonable." 14 years of being the family wallet, and a woman who had known me for 6 weeks understood my boundary better than my parents did. I drove home. At 5:07, Vanessa called. I let it ring. At 5:08, Mom called. Then Dad. Then Clark. Then Vanessa again. At 5:12, my phone lit up with a text. "What did you do?" I put my phone face down. Another message. "The venue says your card is declining." Technically incorrect. My card hadn't declined. I had withdrawn permission for them to use it. Then Ashley texted. "Girl, what is happening?" They stopped the music. I stared at that one for a moment. Apparently, Denise had given Vanessa 15 minutes to provide another payment method before services were paused. At 5:19, my sister called again. This time I answered. She didn't say hello. "Fix this." I leaned back on my couch. "Fix what?" "My party." "I thought I wasn't welcome at your party." "You know what I mean." "No, Vanessa. Today I've decided I don't know what anyone means unless they say it clearly." Her breathing sounded sharp. "There are 80 people here." "I know. I paid for 80 meals." "You embarrassed me." That actually made me smile. "I'm in my apartment." The manager came up to me in front of everybody and said the payment didn't clear. "Then pay it." "With what?" There it was. The question she never thought she would have to answer. "With your money, Vanessa. You know we don't have $7,000 sitting around." "Then maybe you shouldn't throw a $9,000 party." "You offered." "Yes, I kept my voice quiet. I offered to pay for my sister's gender reveal. You announced in front of 80 people that I was too depressing to attend. That means I'm no longer a guest, which means I'm definitely no longer the sponsor." "You can't do this." "I already did." She started crying, not sad crying, furious crying. "You're jealous because I have a husband and a baby and you have nothing." That one landed. I won't pretend it didn't. For a few seconds, I couldn't speak. Then something inside me became very still. I have a career, friends, a home, savings, a life I actually like. You know what I meant. I do. Behind her, I heard voices. Clark arguing with somebody, my father saying my name. Then Dad grabbed the phone. "Julia, enough." His tone was the same tone he had used when I was 13. "You need to put your card back on the account." "No. This childish retaliation has gone far enough." I left when I was told to leave. Your sister made one stupid comment. She made it into a microphone. She's pregnant. Pregnancy doesn't create a temporary exemption from basic decency. Dad lowered his voice. "People are watching." "Good." "Excuse me?" "Maybe that's why everyone in this family behaves this way. Everything is about preventing people from seeing what we're actually like." "You are humiliating your sister." "No, I'm refusing to pay for my own humiliation." Dad went silent. Then he tried the sentence that had worked on me for decades. "Family helps family." I looked around my quiet living room, at the couch I had paid for, the bookshelves I had assembled, the framed photograph from a trip to Portugal I took alone after Vanessa told me solo travel was kind of sad. For years, I said, family helping family has meant Julia helping everyone. That's not fair. Neither was today. Then I hung up. The party did continue. I learned later that Clark's father finally put the remaining venue balance on 2 credit cards after 23 extremely uncomfortable minutes. But some extras were canceled. The photographer left at the end of the time already covered by the deposit. The custom smoke cannon reveal was removed because that vendor required final payment. And because the schedule had fallen apart, the cake sat outside too long and started leaning. The grand reveal ended up being Vanessa and Clark popping 2 handheld confetti cannons somebody purchased from a nearby party store. Blue confetti. A boy. I found out from Instagram. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about missing a family milestone. I felt sad. There is a difference. The real explosion happened the next morning. Mom arrived at my apartment at 9:15. She didn't knock gently. She pounded. I opened the door. She walked inside without waiting. "Your sister cried all night." "I'm sorry she's upset. You ruined one of the most important days of her life." I didn't insult her. "You took away the money. My money. You promised it." And she told me to leave. Mom rubbed her temples. "You're obsessed with that one sentence." "No, I'm finally paying attention to what that sentence revealed." She stared at me. I continued. "Do you know what the weirdest part was, Mom? Not what Vanessa said." "What?" "You." Her face tightened. "You followed me out, and instead of telling me she was wrong, you told me not to ruin her day." "That's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant." I walked to the kitchen table and picked up a notebook. For the previous year, I had started tracking family expenses because my accountant had told me I needed better records. I opened it. $1,400 for Dad's dental work. Mom blinked. Julia, $800 for your refrigerator. That was an emergency. $2,300 toward Vanessa's wedding photographer. $1,100 for her dress alterations and car rental. $900 when Clark was between jobs. $600 for your anniversary trip. And $2,000 already gone yesterday as a non-refundable deposit. Mom's expression changed. For the first time, she wasn't looking at me like an angry daughter. She was looking at numbers. I closed the notebook. I'm done. With what? Paying. Her face went pale. Julia, I'm not cutting anyone off emotionally. I'm not refusing to speak to you. But the Farrell family bank is closed. That's ridiculous. No, what's ridiculous is that you're standing in the apartment of your 34-year-old daughter, demanding that she finance people who openly disrespect her. Your father is going to be furious. That's okay. What about Christmas? Buy presents you can afford. Her mouth actually fell open. And Vanessa's baby shower? I'll buy my nephew a gift. You're not helping with the shower? No. She's counting on you. That's the problem. 3 weeks passed. Then something surprising happened. Nothing collapsed. My parents survived without my money. Vanessa survived. Clark picked up extra work. Mom canceled a weekend trip she apparently assumed I would partially fund. Dad postponed buying a new fishing boat he absolutely did not need. And I discovered that I had almost $2,000 more in my checking account at the end of the month than usual. It felt obscene, then liberating. I booked a weekend hiking trip with 2 friends. I replaced the ancient mattress I had complained about for years. I increased my retirement contribution. And one Saturday, I walked past a small pottery studio near my apartment and signed up for a beginner class simply because I wanted to. Nobody needed anything from me there. Nobody cared whether I was married. Nobody introduced me as the successful one right before asking for money. I was just Julia. 2 months after the gender reveal, Vanessa called. Our conversations had been brief since the party. I almost ignored it. Then I answered. Hey, her voice sounded different, quiet. Can we talk? That depends. I'm not asking for money. I waited. She exhaled. I was awful to you. It wasn't the apology I expected. For once, there was no but, no pregnancy excuse, no explanation about stress. Just, I was awful to you. I sat down. Why? She was silent for a long time. Because my friends kept asking about you. What about me? How you travel, your job, your apartment, how you just do whatever you want. I almost laughed. You kicked me out because people thought my life was interesting? It made me insecure. Vanessa, you were pregnant with a wanted baby, married to a man you love, standing at an $8,000 party someone else paid for. What exactly were you insecure about? Myself. That stopped me. She sniffed. I kept talking like you were lonely because I needed you to be lonely. There it was. Probably the most truthful thing my sister had ever said to me. If you were happy, she continued, then I had to admit that getting married first didn't mean I won something. I closed my eyes. All those comments, the jokes about my biological clock, calling my apartment a bachelorette cave, telling people I was married to my career. It had never been concern. It had been comparison. I'm sorry, she said. I accept the apology. She sounded relieved. Then I added, but things aren't going back to normal. Silence. I know. No more loans, no more paying for parties, no emergency credit card, no covering things because I don't have children. I know. And if you ever humiliate me like that again, I won't argue. I'll just leave. I know. We didn't magically become best friends after that. Real life isn't that clean. But we became more honest. My parents took longer. Dad didn't speak to me for nearly a month. Mom kept sending little guilt messages. Families shouldn't keep score. I finally replied, then stop sending me the bill. She didn't answer. My nephew, Noah, was born in November. When Vanessa asked me to visit the hospital, I hesitated. Then she said something I didn't expect. Not because you're bringing anything. I just want his aunt there. So I went. No catered room, no balloons worth hundreds of dollars, no photographer, no 80 guests. Just Vanessa looking exhausted and terrified and happy. Clark asleep in a chair, and a tiny baby wrapped in a blue blanket. Vanessa handed him to me. He has your nose, she whispered. That poor kid, she laughed, a real laugh. Then she looked at me. For what it's worth, I hope he grows up like you. I looked down at my nephew. Single and depressing? She covered her face. Oh God. I started laughing. A second later, so did she. And somehow that ridiculous joke healed more than all the dramatic apologies. I still think about that gender reveal sometimes. Not because of the $8,950. Not even because of what Vanessa said. I think about the moment my mother followed me into the hallway and asked me not to ruin my sister's day. For most of my life, I thought keeping peace made me kind. It didn't. Sometimes keeping peace just means making sure the person causing the damage never has to hear the sound of anything breaking. I had spent years confusing generosity with obligation, love with usefulness, being needed with being valued. That party taught me the difference. I didn't cancel Vanessa's celebration. I didn't scream. I didn't flip tables. I didn't expose her in front of 80 people. I simply believed her when she said I didn't belong there. And then I stopped paying to be somewhere I wasn't wanted. That was all. The music stopped because nobody had planned for the possibility that Julia Farrell might finally say no. Now they plan for it, and more importantly, so do I.